Thank you so much. So I will try to share my screen because I did prepare some slides. We'll see how that works. Okay, one sec. So if it doesn't work, you need to somehow let me know, probably through the Discord, because that's where I am. No, I don't need to share this. Okay. So yeah, as I said before, I'm a part of the Global Code of Conduct team for Global Diversity CFP Day. And that is an event that is focused on people who have been marginalized, who are minorities. So we really thought a lot about what does it need to make those people feel safe and give them the best environment and space to be creative and to be honest and to tell their story, because that's what we want from people who give talks. So a lot of those learnings we put into some documents, and I've used that also to organize different events this year. And so I was approached by, I think, Flora to help out with a workshop. I didn't really incorporate any real activities. I'm just going to pretty much give a talk. And if you're on Discord, you can just ask some questions there, because I'm going to see that. If not, then this is just mainly a talk, and it would be great to have a conversation though. So if you watch it later, hit me up on Twitter, and we can talk about everything concerning how to choose a COC and also act on it. So the first question I think that most people ask themselves, obviously, is why do I need a COC? And the argument usually is because we should just be nice to each other. And that is a good point. I think that we should be nice to each other, but it's more than just being nice. It's also to create a professional and constructive space. So I think we should all, especially in a community, try and contribute to creating the best possible space. And a COC specifically is not supposed to be something to it's supposed to be a sword, a shield, and not a sword. So you're not supposed to use it to hurt someone or to do something. It's supposed to be a shield. So it's supposed to protect, and supposed to protect the most vulnerable among us. So a COC will help you, hopefully, with that. So you'll be able to also act on things that was never intended, things that just kind of turned out that way. As an example, the controversy that happened over Hacktoberfest, where this was clearly something that was not intended by the people who organized it, but it happened because there was no one specifically said don't do these things. And it's just that you didn't think of it. But a COC might be able to help you with catching all these instances where you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know what someone will during your event. So I'm going to also check. Sorry, I don't have my speaker notes on, and I'm doing this the very first time, giving this particular workshop. So I'm going to wait. Okay. All right. So a COC will ideally help you with two things. One is that it will make clear where your boundaries are. It will make clear. It will make clear what the rules are at your event. And the physical and mental health of the attendees should be among your most important concerns as an organizer of any kind of event. So I think that the COC will be able to help you with providing this the safety. So a COC will help you explicitly stating your values. It will help you make marginalized folks feel safe, because this is essentially about how prepared are you to deal with situations. And I'm going to talk a bit more about that later. And it will help you also to have a basis for taking action if it would be necessary to do so. So if you don't have any rules written down that someone agrees to, then there's little to no like basis for action, because you didn't actually agree on anything specifically. So this is the thing about COCs. They're usually trying to be as specific as possible while remaining as vague as necessary. So you're not going to penalize or not going to describe specific actions, but you're trying to get like a good generalization of what it is that you expect from your attendees. So, but we're going to get a bit more practical. So, okay, how would you then, now that you know that you have to have a COC to just make sure, pretty much, how do you pick or write a COC? So for one thing, there are some that already exist. So the first one is, if you don't have like any base to go off on, there's the site codeofconduct.com, and it pretty much has a basic rundown. There's a very quick version that's pretty much just like, don't harass people, don't hurt people based on their properties that they don't have any power over. I think that's a good rule of thumb, generally speaking, that like if it's something that someone does not have power over, you better not like comment on it in any way. And this is like dangerous territory, because you don't know what kind of feelings are associated with those things. So you better stay clear of like making comments about something that people could possibly feel like strongly about. I know that this is like sometimes not a clear line to draw, but that's why these kinds of code of conduct templates will help you with that. So you can more or less copy paste this, but you should definitely, I mean, obviously you should read through this and make sure you understand the language of it and you understand the gist of it, like the core of this. And you should adapt it to your particular situation. These are obviously still for offline events, but the general rule of thumb applies to online events as well. It's mainly about like, okay, so I'm thinking about how to phrase this. So in your work as event organizers, it's important to not insert yourself into these situations, like your own values, because you might be biased as well. So we'll also talk about this later, but these particular properties that are listed here are there for a reason, because these are the ones that people do get harassed over. And even though you might not understand it, or you might know someone who feels okay about it, like this is your personal experience and your personal bias that you have from your personal life. And so that's why I always recommend getting like a template like this that's already done, instead of writing it completely on your own, because you might just bring your own bias into it. I also want to show you this code of conduct that we have from the Global Diversity CFP Day. And this is like a bit of a longer one where we go a little bit deeper into like what it means to be at a Global Diversity CFP Day. So these were workshops with 20 to 50 people. And we were very aware that we're inviting specifically people who are underrepresented and marginalized. So we were trying to be like extra aware of the vulnerability and the need to protect people here. So we also added the steps to report, like what exactly you have to do to report a violation, and also the steps that we are taking after a report has been made. And then this is the list of the people, because we also wanted to be very transparent about who it is on the team, and then also which issues occurred. We wanted to be extra transparent. So these were just 2 examples. I'm sure there are others on the internet that you can just look and copy and paste it, which it's totally fine. Just make sure that you read it yourself and you understand it and you can enforce it and explain it to someone else. All right. So yeah, a COC should put the emphasis on protecting the most vulnerable, which means that you're not supposed to like find the right point in it. The COC is to protect. So if you were to have to make a determination, then like a he said, she said, or they said, you should always try and put the emphasis on the person who's more vulnerable in the specific situation. And I don't want to go too much into detail about what kind of situations these could be, but I think you can most of the time get a good feeling about what is happening and who's like using their particular position to maybe harass someone else. Yeah, this is an important point in that context, that the COC is not a tool to mediate any disagreements between people who are equals. It's just, that's not what it is for. And this is not what you should try to do. A person who is a famous speaker, for example, who's been accused of harassment, they're not being silenced or they're not being excluded from the industry as such. So it's not like you're really taking away their platform if it's this one-time thing for you. If it's someone who has had if the person who has been accused of something and has is in a more powerful position, then usually the impact for them is not as big as the impact for the person who's been hurt and who's been harassed. So, yeah, a COC should encompass all behavior, be it speech or action, on all platforms associated, with your event. So this is like a general guideline, just to be also aware of the fact that you could also have platforms like social media platforms that are associated with your event, and you should also make sure that your COC applies to them as well, because there can be things that happen there that will reflect negatively or make the people who are just attending your event unsafe. Right. So the next question would then be, if you've picked a COC, how you should communicate it to the outside world to make sure that everyone sees it. So there are multiple ways. You have to definitely make sure that every person who participates in the event, so that means the attendees, the speakers, the sponsors, but also the organizers themselves, everyone who has any part in this event, they have to read and agree to the COC upfront before the event happens. So if you're selling tickets online, you can make that a requirement to agree to the COC. And again, this is so you can say later that this person has agreed to the code of conduct, which states that this is not acceptable and they will be removed if this happens. And this will give you kind of the base to actually do that. So yeah, I would recommend to just put this as like a check mark to buying the ticket. Also, you should have the COC ideally at the event. Always have a link to it, or just make it always accessible so people don't have to like actually Google it if they need it. Yeah, and also, as I said, make sure that also the organizers have read and agreed to the COC. Yeah, so if you're writing, if you're sending emails, if you're sending tweets, or maybe with tweets it's different, but in all kinds of like longer communications, you should always include your COC. Just again, for people to have easy reference to it. It is a very important aspect, and especially in communications, it's even more important, because if there's something offensive in those communications, then the COC is right there for the person to access it. If this is something that we did in our COC for the Global Diversity CFP Day, that we also published the process on how we will handle reports regarding COC violations. And that was because something, there was a report being made, and people were basically criticizing that it wasn't clear how exactly we came to that conclusion. So that was fair. That was totally fair. And so since then, we published the process on how we will react to COC violation reports. And also, if you're like super good, you can send out a message specifically about your COC and to explain the process. So you can just send one message like, this is our COC, this is what will happen if you report it, if you report a violation, and just to make people extra aware that this exists. And I think that's also something that will make clear that you put thought into this, that you take it seriously, and will make it more likely for people who are marginalized to attend your event. Yeah. So if you have picked a COC, you've communicated, then the question is now like how, if some violations should occur, they should be reported to you. You should offer as many channels as you can, because the more channels you have, the more likely it is that people will actually report them to you. And you can also let people know that they can report something after the event, so you can take preventative measures for the future. But just be aware that you also have to reduce it to the channels that you can realistically monitor, because you should react as timely as possible. And if it's 6 different channels that you just don't have the time to actually do, then it's better to just focus on 1 or 2. So these could be platforms where you report violations. It could be via phone or video chat, email, Google form, WhatsApp, Slack, Twitter, anything that you can think of that makes it easier for you to accept those reports. That's what you should go for. And if you're doing offline events, which I hope you're doing socially distanced, you can also provide a room to report those violations in. So this room should be secret in the sense that the attendees are not explicitly aware of that room, but the other organizers are. So then if someone sees an attendee going in with the person who's in charge of the COC, everyone else knows what is happening, but the attendees don't. So if this has now been reported to you, then the next question is how you should handle those COC violations. Definitely you should have at least one person to handle those violations, those reports. It would be even better if you had two. So sorry, I lost my thing. The number of two, to have two people makes it a little bit easier to also have someone dedicated to the attendees in general to keep an eye out there. So at least one is, I think, the best way to go, because if you're doing other things at the same time, you're not fully able to react in time. Sorry, this is really weird to have a workshop with no one in front of you. Okay. When a report is made to you, you should always respond in a way that makes the reporter feel that you believe them. Someone reports a violation they're already in a vulnerable spot, and you should do whatever is in your power to make them feel comfortable and make them feel that you believe them. Even if you shouldn't, you can act on that later. You can just discuss this with the other organizers or the other person on the COC team. But in the moment, you need to always be empathetic with the person reporting to you, obviously. You should prioritize the most vulnerable. Again, the whole point of the COC is to protect people who are vulnerable. So in a decision where you have a one-to-one situation, then you should always err on the side of the person who's more vulnerable. If you can, you should try to not make the reporter actually confront the offender unless they want to do that. So that means that in the reporting process, you might want to have like a plan B. In case the person who's being reported is the person who's also handling the reports. So you should always have a way for a person to report to someone who's not the offender. If you have to further investigate what happened, you should think about anonymizing the report. So just leave out the name, gender, whatever properties, to make sure that later on this person is not put on the spot. Again, this ties into the thought of protecting the people who are most vulnerable, who are in need of someone to act on their behalf. If it's possible, you should always try and create a learning moment. But also, again, make sure that the person who reported is safe. But if, for example, we had situations where someone would make a comment and they're not aware that this specific language has specific intonations or connotations, if the reporter is safe and feels safe about it, you can try and, for example, discuss this in the group. This is the best possible outcome, I think, if you can share a moment of learning, because that will always bring people more together, and that's, I think, what you should always strive for. And but if there's any like real harassment going on, then just ask the person to leave and do not make the reporter relive that trauma of discussing it. If there's an extreme case where laws have been broken, just call the police immediately. This is way above your pay grade, and you need to have this handled by professionals. Make sure to document everything that has happened, to give just the most accurate account possible. But leave it. This is not something that you should deal with. So something that might help you is this document we created. You can find it under bit.ly. The link are in the slides, which I'm going to share after this. And this was something we tried to create as just to help people to prepare for having to handle COC violation reports, because it's something that we don't really like. You never hope to do this, and it's very uncomfortable. But you have to at least feel prepared. And this document is hopefully something that will help you with this. So we created some scenarios where we describe a situation and then suggest a way to handle. In this case, we were the global team who would also oversee all the events that happened. So this is not the same here, but you can still read through this. This is not a rule or law for you, but just a suggestion, what we think would be best to do. And these are scenarios like where we had mentors who are kind of like speakers, and then for just the attendees for their behavior. So you can just read through this and see if something's helpful for you. And if you can also try and role play situations just to make it more comfortable for you, so you feel confident. All right, so we're almost at the end. What else can I do? What else can you do to make people feel comfortable? I would say that you need to just be aware that this is your event and you want to make sure that people are safe and have the best environment around them to get what they came for, pretty much, to be as productive as they want to. So I don't know if it's the stream, but something froze. Oh, okay, here we go. Yeah, so I would just suggest to always be proactive. You don't have to wait for something to have happened. If you, like, a COC only acts after the fact, but if you should always try to stop things from happening in the first place. So if you sometimes read, hear inappropriate comments, and you feel like this is not quite a violation of the COC, you don't have to stay passive and wait until it happens. You can take the person aside and remind them to be respectful towards others, that this is not a violation yet, but it's like still maybe makes you uncomfortable. So just try and create a culture of like openness and honesty, and but it's also safety and comfort. Just remember that this is your event, and the safety of your attendees should be your highest priority, as I said at the beginning. But also don't forget to have fun, and having a COC and enforcing it, it's not super comfortable always, but also at the same time, it's something that's very rewarding, because people will tell you that this is something that makes them feel safe, because people don't always feel safe at events like these. Even with remote events, it's still, for some people, it's still difficult because they're not being adequately protected from abuse and harassment. So you have the chance as an event organizer to help marginalized people to feel safe and be productive.